Well, hello. My name is Bob Cook, and I'm very excited to have a very special guest with us here today, a leader within the deaf community, Jim Jones. I'm going to be asking him questions about his life, he was growing up. And here he is, Jim Jones.
Now, wait a minute. You're going to be asking me all about my life, my entire life? Oh, no, that's going to take us more than 70 years here. I think, well, let me see if I can try to briefly summarize some of the major events in my life. Now, I wasn't born deaf. I was born dumb, but I wasn't born deaf. I grew up in Indiana. I became deaf at the age of 5 from spinal meningitis. And shortly after that, my father began trying to find where would be an appropriate place for me to gain my education. In that search, he found that the State School for the Deaf was located close to our home. And that's where I spent most of my years, at the State School for the Deaf. During that time, boy, the worst part was that struggle with speech and speech reading. Signing was no problem at all, and that's what I spent most of my time doing. But I had to do that speech and speech training. After graduation, I went to Gallaudet University. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do for my future, but I had taken a chemistry class and fell in love with it. I loved science, and I decided to major in that. Now, while I was at Gallaudet, of course, I met the girl of my dreams and married her. And then I started at the U.
Now, wait a minute. Your wife? What's your wife's name?
My wife is Eldora Lux. That was her maiden name, was Lux. And she graduated from the State Academy in Faribault. Anyways, let me see. Going back to the University of Minnesota, where I had started my first career. I was working as a scientist and worked there for 20 years. And then I was offered an opportunity at St. Paul TVI. I made the move over there for a second career, a different job, well, truly a different life. And I taught at TVI for 20 years. And now I'm beginning my 6th year of my third 20-year career, doing my time here in God's waiting room.
Kenny, you've had many interesting and different careers, but what I want to focus on here is your work at the University of Minnesota as a chemist. What exactly did you do? Was it working in pathology?
Oh, no. We worked on living people, not dead people. And what I was doing then was research on the heart. Well, actually, blood flow. We did a lot of work in that area. Well, here in Minnesota, we have a high incidence of frostbite. And so what we were trying to do was experiment and find what effect that might have on blood flow in individuals. So a lot of our research dealt with timing the time it took for the blood to flow around the circulatory system to return back to the heart. We found on average it was 17 seconds for people.
It didn't matter how tall or how short a person was? It was still 17 seconds for the blood to go through one cycle?
On average, yes.
Can you say you worked as a chemist? Did you have any interpreters that worked with you, or how did you communicate with people?
That was a problem. Sometimes I was required to do continuing education work to broaden my field of knowledge in chemistry, and so I had to go to classes that were offered at the university. There were no interpreters at that time. It was 1950 to 1970 that I spent my time at the U, and through that whole time there were no interpreters. It was entirely speech and speech reading that I had to depend on. And the professors never attended to me or spoke to me in the class. So I had to pretty much depend on people who might be willing to give me their notes or act as note takers for me in the class. There were 3 nurses that I'd worked with in that 20-year period, and they got to be pretty good, well, good enough at knowing sign. And so every once in a while for meetings and things like that, that we'd use them as interpreters. And that probably wasn't the best situation, but it worked out all right. Most of the time, what I had to do was have people talk directly to me, which was a difficult task because people wanted to look all about the room and never attend to me or give me good eye contact. But then I moved to St. Paul TVI, and it was a totally different story. Here I had an interpreter every time I needed one. All I'd have to do is say, hey, would you mind coming with me? It was really easy. There was no communication problem, and the communication difference between TVI and the university was just huge.
Yeah, I know I've had some of the same problems with communication access, and I'm kind of curious here. When you moved to TVI, who offered you that, and why did you make that move?
Well, really, why it was offered to me, I'm not quite sure. But Tim Jensch was the first instructor at the TVI program when it was established. And Bob Lauritsen, the director at that time, had been working with Tim for 1 year. Well, Tim had found a better position back at his home state of California, and the two of them sat down to try to discuss who might be an appropriate replacement for Tim when he left. And I have no idea how my name came up, but Tim offered my name. He had heard about me in the community, and he thought I might be a good replacement. So they contacted me, and that was a big decision for my family. I remember that total change in career, but it was a challenge, and I went for it.
Okay, so you made that move over to TVI. But we're also very involved in the deaf community. There's so many different things that we could talk about that I could ask you about. But I know one in particular that you're very active in the national fraternity. That's the selling of insurance, right? Can you explain a little bit more to me about that?
Well, really, what I need to do is take us way back quite a few years to when I was a student at the State Academy for Deaf Students in Indiana. I was a leader at the school and was identified as an individual that would probably be good to work with FRAT. That was a nice way to earn some extra money. And unfortunately, FRAT wasn't doing very well at that time, not in the area. And so they were looking for people who might be interested in officers' positions, and I was willing to become the vice president. I was selected to be the vice president. Now I thought I should certainly learn a little bit more about what I was going to talk about, so I studied the insurance area and then was appointed to the vice presidency, and I served on various positions for 16 years on the board of directors for FRAT. And I served as the president at one time and then in different positions on the board of directors. And I think we did a real good job during my interim.
Now, you're still involved with the FRAT, is that right?
Well, yes, as a member. I'm not active, no.
And now they still have meetings on, is it the first Saturday of each month?
Local FRAT meetings, yes. I go to those when I can. But right now I'm kind of stuck with children, well, grandchildren. And that keeps me pretty busy.
Well, now wait, this is the first you've talked about this. You have children? How many?
Well, we have 5 children, the first being a girl, and the rest are all boys. They're all grown and out of the house now. And really, I can't say my little children. I have to say my big children.
And are they deaf or hearing?
They're all hearing. All of them. All are married. and let me see, all have children of their own. 17. Oh, no, 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 no. What, I'm going ahead of myself here. No, I have 13 grandchildren. The oldest of which is 20 years old, and the youngest is 7 months. 7 months.
You must be very proud of them. Do they keep you busy?
Oh, yes. Yes, we've been very busy. We take care of them quite often. We babysit one of the child that was the one that I was mentioning, 6, 7 months old. We babysit every Wednesday, and then another set of 3 kids we babysit every Thursday. So my time on Wednesdays and Thursdays is pretty well committed. Every once in a while, a meeting will pop up, and I will need to go someplace else, and then my wife steps in and takes care of that. But I help her out.
Now, your wife, that's Eldora. Is she also a member of the FRAT?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, not as active a member as I was, but certainly a member, yes.
Okay, then, other than being involved with the FRAT, you're also involved with Minnesota Association of Deaf Citizens.
Mm-hmm.
How long have you been involved with that organization?
I'm not really sure. Let's see. Well, early 50s. Early 50s is when I joined MADC. And then I became actively involved. I was the secretary for 4 years and a board member for many years. I lose count. I'm not a board member anymore. I still certainly have my interest and keep my nose in their business as much as possible. Try to keep aware of their activities on the behalf of deaf Minnesotans.
Yeah, I can remember when I was at the School for the Deaf. It was in my senior year in 1959, right before graduation, and Dr. Lauritsen was encouraging all of us to join MADC. And membership only cost $5 for a lifetime. Well, I took that bait right away and joined. And then I noticed when I got my membership card back, I looked at the secretary, and it said Jim Jones on it. And now I'm here with you. This is so interesting.
I don't remember signing your card, but I was signing so many cards back then, a stack at a time. It's certainly possible.
Oh, I can only imagine. Okay, now the next thing to talk about, you're also president of the Minnesota Deaf Senior Citizens. What, don't you ever get tired?
Well, really, I joined Minnesota Deaf Senior Citizens, MDSC, and thought, I'll just sit back and see how they can serve me. And then all of a sudden, people were coming to me for assistance with this or that. And I noticed, I think that group can certainly do better. And so I decided to stick my neck in the midst of it, and I got heavily involved. And it's been kind of quiet, but as an organization, but I certainly shook everybody up. And we've started to do quite a few things now. And let me see, 1996, I just became president. It's only been a few months, and we just got started, but I've been kept pretty busy. Next April, we're going to have our next national convention in Phoenix, Arizona. And just last week, I got a letter from Phoenix talking about 60 deaf people had already indicated they're going to be going from Minnesota. Now, I don't think we're going to be the largest contingent, of course, because California is right next door to Arizona, and there's a huge number there. You can imagine how many people will come in from California area. But, it's just a wonderful group. And no politics, just socializing and talking about people's lives and catching up and finding out what's going on in different communities. It's truly a wonderful experience. This will be our 4th national convention, and I've gone to all of them so far, and I really enjoy them. So you see, it pays to be old.
Well, pretty soon I'm going to be joining you. It seems like I'm always following in your footsteps. Now, you said that there's no politics involved in these meetings and these conferences. What do you discuss if there's no politics?
Well, I have to say that when we go to Phoenix, it's more of a senior citizens conference. So it's really more focused on educational information. We get together to discuss issues and ideas or subjects that are of interest to us and happening on a national part. Now we also get benefits because we have a badge that will let us into parks at a discount. We play a lot of bridge, and we have instruction on how to play bridge better. Oh, but probably the most well-attended workshops are typically on sex. It just goes to prove that you're never too old to enjoy sex. Isn't that interesting?
So, meaning if you didn't have sex, that your life would not be worth living?
Well, that's certainly my perspective.
Can a deaf seniors do the work with AARP?
Well, no. We're not very happy with AARP because as an organization they refuse to provide interpreters. So, let's see, the last 2 meetings we discussed about going under NAD or AARP or being a free organization with an identity of our own. And we really didn't want to have anybody else taking control of us or having control over us, and we didn't like AARP. NAD was okay, but AARP really didn't provide us interpreters, so we decided the best for us would be to go out on our own. Of course, it means that money is always an issue, but money is typically an issue. So I think it's all right. We're having our 4th national conference, and we seem to be going along just fine. Everybody enjoys themselves, and we always see smiling faces every time we go. It's interesting. For example, one meeting 2 years ago, I met a lot of friends. It was in Columbus, Ohio, and I met so many of my friends, and we were shaking hands, and everybody was saying, "Well, how are you? How are you?" That's how people always would greet each other and say, "How are you?" And people would say, "Oh, I'm fine, but I'm taking this medicine for my blood pressure, or I'm having this problem or that problem. I'm on this medicine or that." And then I went to meet with one man, and I said, "How are you?" And he said, "Oh, I'm great. And I'm not on a single prescription. I'm not taking anything." And I thought, that's the kind of thing that you see. It's really fun. It's kind of funny. We really enjoy ourselves.
So, Minnesota Deaf Senior Citizens, how long has that been established?
Well, I'm not really sure. We certainly, as president, I certainly should know more about the background. But I think it got its start in the late 70s or early 80s. It was established with a group or as a federation, a senior federation, I believe. There was a grant that allowed the group to form. And then we were able to hire an individual. Her name was Peg Thomas, and she was able to secure continued funding for the group that they were able to enjoy for a while. But as you know, money's gotten tight and grants have been halted in several regards. And so we really weren't able to have Peg advance the way she would have liked to, so she left. And then another woman came in, and we weren't very successful in getting any further granting. And we had moved ourselves out from dependency on any other group. What we mostly wanted to do was just do social functions and things, and our own group of people weren't very willing to subsidize the organization. So it was difficult to get continued funding. But it seems to have grown as an organization. I'm not the only person that does work. Other people have done a lot of volunteer time. And we try to keep ourselves going through that route.
Okay, suppose I join as a member. What's the cost?
Ooh, it's expensive. $5 a year. That's expensive, eh?
Ah, you're teasing me.
Well, some people think $5 is a lot of money. But you're a rich guy, Bob. You don't have to worry.
Okay, so MDSC, they work with other organizations like MADC or DEAF?
Well, sure, we do work with the deaf school. We just started working with the State Academy for Deaf Students last year. Well, this year, too. We have a grandparent program, grandmothers and grandfathers, where once a month a group of us will go down to the State Academy. It's not always the same people. There are different people each time. And we interact with the students at the school. The students have the opportunity to ask us about our experiences, what we did when we were growing up, how our signs have changed over time, ask us about deaf culture. And then we have time to interact with the children. Now, not the really young children. But it's an enjoyable time for us. And I think both sides really benefit from that. Now with MADC and DEAF, I think we can do service for them, volunteer service of sorts. So many of those organizations are crying for help. They really need people to help them out with all kinds of tasks. Well, why not ask senior citizens to come in and do some volunteer work, some volunteer jobs? Now, what kind? Well, that has to be answered yet. But I certainly think that our members can do letters and mailings and other kinds of office work. There's certainly things we can do.
Okay, before I get off of this subject, I have one more question related to MDSC. How many members do you have?
At last count, I think 130. Over 130 now. It seems lately we have a few more people coming. Nobody's died. Nobody's died. Everybody's in good health and they're living longer. And we've had more people join, so our numbers are increasing.
Okay, now, I remember that you used to be involved with the foster care program. You were taking care of somebody. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Well, that was nothing. At one time, we were doing foster care with an older lady. And in that care process, what we were trying to do was provide her with some more independent living training. And I'll have to let you know that was a difficult job at that time. I really don't think I would want to do foster children care anymore. Well, foster care, in my case, as it was. It certainly eats a lot of your time. One advantage of course, that we had was that my wife was not working, so she had more time to put into this effort. But I don't know about doing that again, because after several months, you really find out how much time it takes up, and a lot of your energy as well.
Yeah, I can relate to that because I had a similar experience. Took care of a girl one time, and I know it takes a lot of energy. But I did gain a lot of experience from that.
Oh, true. You get it is a good experience, and I would recommend it for anybody.
Well, now I wanted to say thank you, Jim, for taking your time to come out here and be interviewed. Many thanks.
That's okay.